Hey everybody, DoctorJ here, and welcome to another episode of the Playthrough. Today we're going to be talking about Forbidden Sky, a new game from Gamewright Games, and the third in the Forbidden series with Forbidden Island was first, Forbidden Desert was second, now we've got Forbidden Sky. If you've played through some of the other ones, there's sort of a little story going on that you kind of go from one game to the next to the next. So if you see here in Forbidden Sky, for instance, this little ship that you have here is actually the one that you build in Forbidden Desert. So there's a fun little connection there. But today we're going to talk about how to play Forbidden Sky. So the first thing you need to know is that there's a lot of these interesting components to it that kind of make it feel a little bit like a 5th grade science project type deal, but it kind of adds a little unique, fun aspect to the game. And the way that you win the game is if you see all these little circuits here, you have to complete a circuit in order to launch the rocket. And when you complete that circuit, then the rocket gets powered and takes off with all of the people. Yay! All right, so let's talk about how you complete the circuit and how you win the game of Forbidden Sky. So like the other Forbidden games, if you've played those, this is a co-op game, and you're all working together to try to accomplish a goal. So the first thing you need to do when you set up the game is you need to give each player one of these unique player power cards. And on the other side, it has a player aid to help you out. But each one has a unique power. So for instance, we've got the medic in this game. We've got the electrician, the surveyor, and then we've got the climber. And there's two other special abilities that you can choose from. But these are the four that we've picked for this. And then after you pick the card, you take these little sliders and you set your hearts to maximum. And then on the other side, you have ropes, and you need to set those all the way to the top as well. So the first thing that you're going to do after you get that is everyone's going to get a tile, and then you're just going to take turns, taking actions. So the way that the turn works is on each turn, each player is going to get 4 actions, and there's 4 different actions that you can take. So the 4 actions that you can take is you can move. You can just move from one square to another that's adjacent to it. You can't move diagonally, but that's one action. You can place a wire down if you're able to. You can draw a tile, or you can place a tile. So let's talk about moving first. It's really simple. You just move one space orthogonally, that means not diagonally, from one tile to another for one action. If you notice, there's these little platforms on here. You have to move to a place that's touching another platform. So if you see here, these 2 tiles, there's actually nothing connecting them but this cloud space, and so you couldn't actually move across that tile from this one. So that's how moving works. Next, drawing tiles. It's simple. You just draw a tile and take it into your hand. You're limited to 3 tiles in your hand at any one time, so if you have 3 tiles already, you can't take that action. Placing tiles, you can only place tiles that are orthogonally adjacent to an area that you're at. So if I'm the black player here and I have this tile, I am able to play it on this tile, but I would not be able to, or possibly up here on this tile, but I would not be able to play it on any other spaces but those 2. I can't play it down here and I can't play it up here because I'm not adjacent to it. A special rule that you need to follow when you're placing tiles is that at least one of these copper wires has to connect from the tile that you're at to the tile. They don't all have to connect, just one of them does. And then finally, you can place a wire, and the rules for that are you have to be able to connect them between the capacitors or the lightning rods, and they have to be able to reach. So in this situation, I could reach with this long one, but if we're all out of long wires and I only have this short one, you'll see it can't. I can try to make it connect, but it really doesn't reach. So I'm not able to put that there. So those are the rules as far as the wires go. Another important thing that you have to do is after each player takes a turn, they have to flip over one of these weather cards, which changes the state of the board and can really make things difficult. This is where the hard part of the game comes in, because these cards can really mess you up, can hurt your teammates, and really you risk dying, basically. So we'll go over some of the cards that are in the decks. First is the winds change card. This changes the direction that the winds are facing. So if you see here, it's got the little green arrows going in a clockwise direction. You change it here, so now the winds will blow to my left whenever a card comes up that causes the wind to blow. And we'll actually go to that card next. High winds is the next card. So anytime high winds come out, each player's pawn is going to be pushed one direction, one square, whatever direction the winds are facing. So here, this orange player would go here, this white player would go here, the green player would go here, and the black player would move here. If this were how it was set up when the winds blew, you'd notice that the green player here actually can't go to this tile because there's no connecting platform. So if you get pushed, you don't actually move to the next tile because you can't, but you would lose one of your ropes. And remember, if your ropes hit 0, you lose the game. If any one player's ropes hit 0, you lose the game. So you have to be careful where you put your pawn when there's a potential for the high winds to blow you off of a platform. Next up is the lightning strikes card. This card's very, very hazardous, and you have to be really careful. Anytime a lightning strikes card comes out, it's going to, each player who is in a space that is connected to a lightning rod is going to take damage. So if you see here, you've got these lightning rods scattered throughout the board. They come out when you place certain tiles that tell you to place them. But if you see here, this green player is connected to this lightning rod by this wire. So he's going to be losing 1 heart. This orange player is also connected by this wire. And this white player is also connected, even though there's not a plastic wire connecting it. There are 2 wires actually on the board that connect to this space. So this player would also end up getting hurt. The black player, however, would be immune from the damage and would not take it in this situation. So you have to watch out for the lightning strikes. If a lot of lightning strikes come out in quick succession, you could be in a lot of trouble. And then finally, there's the Storm Intensifies card. And what this does is, if you see this tracker here, it bumps up the storm intensity 1 level. If somehow this ever reaches the top space up here, you lose, just like if somebody had lost all their hearts or somebody had lost all their ropes. It would take a long time for that to happen, but just know that if that does happen, you end up losing the game. Those are the 4 cards that come out in the Storm deck. Also, you'll notice at the bottom of this Storm Intensifies card, when this comes out, you actually reshuffle all the cards into the deck. So it could come out in the middle and could cause you a lot of problems as you go. Also, an important thing to note is that each time you play the game, you're going to pick a difficulty level. And what the difficulty level does is it tells you how many capacitors and lightning rods you have to make the connection through in order to complete the circuit. So if you see here this board setup, it was set up for an elite game. So in order to win, you need the launch pad. You need 2 large capacitors, which are right here on the board. You need 4 small capacitors. We've got one here, 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 and here. And then you need 4 lightning rods. And we've got one over here behind the rocket. I don't know if you can see that. And then these 3 over here. So as soon as we finish this circuit, we would end up winning the game. One other important rule is that each player their pawn has to be on one of the spaces connected to the launch pad. I'm not sure if I mentioned that before, but it's an important thing because if somebody is not in one of those 4 spaces when the rocket launches, again, everybody loses. Also, a couple of interesting things to note on the board. There are these teleporter spaces. They're these kind of green, they have these green symbols and they're in a hexagon. You can use a movement action to move from a teleporter space to any other teleporter space. There are the gear symbols, which represent equipment. So anytime a player places a tile with that gear symbol, they get to draw an equipment. And these are various different things. There's jetpacks in here. There are platform clamps, strike shields, just any number of unique little equipment cards that can help you in tough situations. An important thing to note is when you get equipment cards, they can be used at any time. They don't require you to use an action on your turn in order to use them. So that gives your team a little bit of flexibility on how to go about completing your rocket and escaping the station. And then another interesting thing that shows up on the board are Faraday cages. So these are special places that protect you from lightning strikes. So where I said before, where this person would get electrocuted by a lightning strike on one of these lightning rods, they would actually be protected because there's a Faraday cage on that spot. And then lastly, you can see these little blue spots on the board. Those are wind shelters. So whenever a high winds card comes out, if you are on a tile with a wind shelter, you won't be blown around and you won't have the possibility of losing your rope strength as that happens. It's important to keep track of those spaces on the board because as the storm continues to intensify, you'll see here you draw more cards at the end of each turn. So when the little tracker gets into the blue zone, you'll be drawing 2 weather cards every turn, then 3 in the purple, 4 in the other purple, and then finally 5. So the storm really does get a lot worse as you let the game continue on. Anyway, so that's how you play Forbidden Sky. Hey everybody, thanks for joining us for this how to play video of Forbidden Sky. Remember, if you want to hear our thoughts on the game, you can go ahead and click the video and it'll take you to the discussion video where you can hear everybody else's thoughts on how they like playing the game. Also, make sure that you check out the playthru.net for places to subscribe and for all of our other content. Thank you.